Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. It is a glorious day. It went from summer to winter to summer, and I think we're in spring today. Got a little breeze, so I apologize for the wind. But do you remember anyone, your mom, right? Someone on TV saying, violence is never the answer. Well, sometimes violence is the answer. On this channel, we talk about shit hitting the fan, don't we? Well, that is going to be a violent time. A violent time. So over the weekend, I had a number of lessons. I'll start with the first one. I ended up getting recertified for my concealed weapons permit. Had a good time with that. Maybe I'll throw a couple of pictures on here as we talk. Had some fun with that. As usual, I embarrassed everyone. It's amazing. It was my instructor said, you know, the 45 is so accurate. You know, I was punching a fist-size hole in the target from, I think it was 30 and then 40 and then 50 feet. Anyways, it was a bit of fun. And I said, well, why don't you guys shoot them? They go, well, we want maximum firepower. And it was very interesting. The whole day was an experience. But violence is necessary. And I think it's really important. So there's books listed down below in the description. And if you're not a violent person, if you think violence is terrible, you know, join the crowd. Nobody, I think, except for the most sadistic out there, think violence is great, but it's necessary. You know, that violence is never the answer. That's just a bunch of hogwash. That was said to keep people pacified, to keep them, you know, calm, to keep them from using violence when it really is necessary. You know, so, you know, we were told avoid. It is crazy. You get a concealed weapons permit to protect your life. But if you end up getting in a bar fight or a physical altercation, you can lose it. And I'm not talking about using your sidearm to protect yourself. I'm just talking about, you know, getting in a fist fight. It's like, how can defending myself be good on the one hand and not on the other? That's the dichotomy. That's the screwiness of the system that we have. It's just really bizarre. It's really strange. But that's what we've got. So, you know, there's actually two books there. One is in general, and the other one is for more specifically for women. The reason I felt that was important is women tend not to be as violent. I'm not saying they're not capable of defending themselves, especially with a firearm, but they're just not as violent. They don't tend to violence. But that is, when you're faced with violence, you have to respond in kind. In fact, you may have to be the instigator, right? And this is all situational. You know, you may realize that you're going to get in trouble, that something bad is going to happen, and that you taking the first violent step, is necessary, you know, to preserve your safety, your health, and maybe even your life. So this particular training that I took involved tactics. You know, indoor tactical, outdoor tactical, and combined it with the concealed weapons class. And it was interesting. The instructor knows me, and he kept referring to me. Well, if you don't have John's training, if you don't have training, right, you're not going to understand this. So he was giving some real basic stuff, but just trying to help people understand. And I realized at that point that there's a there's a mile of difference between me and you. So I think I need to I think I need to get more, I don't want to say militant. I think I just need to put more information out here in the form of reference works and just discussions about the need and use of violence. Right? And we covered all sorts of topics in the training. And it was interesting, every time he brought a topic up, the instructor, I was instantly thinking about and had, right, a course of action. That's something that you as a prepper need to have. We need to have that up front. That's part of your plan. You know, and I've known this instructor since 2006, so, you know, well over a decade. Really a nice gentleman. But he said, you know, the first time I saw you, John, he says, I noticed that you look people in the eye, you carry yourself a certain way, you stand a certain way, and the guy's law enforcement, he says, law enforcement recognizes your body language and behavior, and so they treat me differently. And then we started talking about how criminals treat people. Criminals are looking for an easy victim, for an easy target. And they look for someone who's not paying attention, someone who's distracted, someone who's small, frail, someone who's alone, someone who is doesn't appear to be defending themselves. And that's why, you know, women getting concealed weapons permits is such a great idea, because that firearm is an equalizing force. And the instructor shared a story about his wife who had to take some remedial action to stop a stalker who was threatening her. And there's a lot of threats, and I have actually a threat story that happened just recently for me. It kind of ties into all this. Violence is going to become necessary when shit hits the fan. Right? It's not just going to be, it won't just be regular Joes out here exhibiting the most stupid characteristics of the human mind. Right? There's also going to be experienced thugs. People who have some street cred, right? Some street life in them. And they're going to be in the same situation as everyone else, but they're going to have the benefit, these thugs, of having been victimized by others and have participated in victimizing people. Whether it's for a living, they're thieves, muggers, rapists, or whether they're just gang members who like to bully and fight. But they're going to be out here. Well, not really where I'm at. They do come out here. They're going to become Swiss citizens, if you know what I mean. So it was really quite interesting listening to these concepts and ideas about some basic tactics. How to move about in your house. You know, what if you hear someone break in your house? And he's talking about just right now. What about when shit hits the fan? You've got everyone camped upstairs, right? You guys are all snuggled in, but someone has to be on, lookout, listening post, and you hear someone kick the door in. Right? They don't have the advantage of knowing your house. You do. Right? And if you see them at a distance, you're on watch. You have the advantage of knowing your terrain far better than they do. And so you need to use every single little advantage and understand when shit hits the fan, it's going to be a violent world. Right? There's absolutely no need for violence. That is so untrue. Right? When you know you're in danger, when you know you're in trouble. Right? He talked about, the instructor, talked about these 4 phases of a crime. And again, it was very general. It wasn't a criminology course or anything. And basically, it ran through the 4 steps of you're identified, right? Then there's an assault. And then you're kidnapped or taken to another place, and that's where the murder occurs, the robbery, or the violence, the rape. And then there's the dumping of the body. He said sometimes that, you get 2 or 3 steps all in one. But what he wanted to make clear, and this was especially to the less experienced people in the training course, is you don't want to get into step 2. You never want to get past step 2, where violence is occurring and you're not the one in charge. You're not the one winning, right? Because once they've identified you and made the decision to victimize you, it's going to happen, right? So this idea of, well, I'm just a peace-loving guy like I am, right? That goes right out the window, because now you have no choice. It is going to happen. And if you get into step 2, which is where the violence occurs, right, starts, you get into that step and you don't win, you move on to step 3, which is murder, rape, dismemberment, or all of the above. Now, in today's world, people tend to hide the bodies or move the bodies to conceal the crime, to give them more time before the body's discovered and an investigation ensues. And shit hits the fan, you may be dragged 5 feet. You may not be dragged anywhere. You may be dropped where you're at, and that's where you're gonna lie until someone shows up with a shovel. When shit hits the fan, you won't have the benefit of a guaranteed benefit of good people in your world. What I mean by that is someone coming along and being a good Samaritan, helping you out. You know, that's basically going to go away. Right? You're going to be really lucky if there's a good Samaritan. And it's not the movies. You notice in the movies, a girl is being assaulted, maybe going to be raped. Right? They're starting to drag her off into the bushes, and some white knight shows up, right? Some dude with a shotgun, and it just starts blowing them away. Saves her ass. Literally. Same with the guy, right? Holy cow, you know, and he's the apprentice and the master saves him. It's not that way in real life. You start getting your ass kicked, and trust me, I've had my ass kicked. Bad. There's no one around. There's not a fucking soul to save you. You can scream and yell all you want in most cases. Even if someone heard you, they wouldn't do anything about it. Even if they wanted to do something about it, they couldn't. But for the most part, you're all on your own when you're getting your ass kicked. So violence is the answer. It is the solution. And being proficient with your sidearm, with your defensive tools, your knife, whatever it is you've got, right? That's the difference between you living and dying. And that's why having an everyday carry defense, a tool, right? Now this instructor kept calling the sidearm a tool. They're all tools. Your pen, right? Your knife, your gun. You should be aware of your surroundings all the time. Now, when I was back on the East Coast visiting my brother and kind of hanging with his E7, you know, he kept watching me. He goes, man, you do the same shit I do. I go, what are you talking about? He says, every room we enter, you scan it and you place yourself in the best position for defense. I said, well, it's force of habit. It's, you know, it's nothing I do intentionally. It's just what I do. And so the instructor, he noticed the same thing, right? I walked in the room, went over to the most advisable spot for defense, for escape, egress, for all sorts of things. He just laughs. He goes, every fucking time, John. I go, I don't know. It's just what I do. You should too. When we get to shit hits the fan, do not put yourself in a position where you are more exposed than you absolutely have to be. Right? Do not appear weak. There are just so many lessons to this. Right? And I know you can't teach someone how to walk, how to talk, how to act, their body language. It's just something that probably comes with getting your ass kicked a lot. You know, it's just what happens. But violence is the answer. Violence is the solution. Violence will save your life. Violence is part of life. You know, people, and I love animals, and I love animal lovers. They've got some of the biggest hearts on the planet. But I like to remind them when I can that animals have, and let's just say, an average lifespan of 10 years. Some a little more, some a little less. Average of 10 years. That means every animal on this planet is born, raised, and dies every decade. And the way they die is not always pleasant. It's very violent. You've seen those shows where the lion like tears the gazelle's guts out while it's alive and it just lays there and gets eaten alive. That is extremely common. I went for a bike ride up a trail the other day that's noted for having mountain lion attacks, or mountain lions, which means a potential of mountain lion attacks. Mountain lion will grab you by the back of the neck, put its claws in you, bring you to the ground, and start tearing the shit out of you with its hinds, just ripping you open. And they'll eat your liver while you're alive and then leave you rest, because they can't eat all of you at once. I mean, show me a mountain lion that weighs 170 pounds that can eat a 270-pound Swede. That's a big, hungry mountain lion. It's not going to happen. So then they'll drag you off while you're still alive, because they would rather have you be alive than dead, so the meat lasts a little longer. And they'll drag you up in the bushes, bury you in leaves, leave you there to suffer. You know, animals are extremely cruel. The world is a violent place. Very violent place. I think everyone should take note and realize that when shit hits the fan, all concepts, all ideas, all preconceived notions of how humans should behave can go out the window. And what's keeping us from that, where you're at today, your world today, where you're at today, and that is a very thin veil, an extremely thin veil of civilization and civilized thought. I've been having an interesting conversation, or set of conversations, about IQ and violence from a psychological standpoint. And it's a fact. Stupid people, ignorant people, stupid people, low IQ people have a tendency to be and act more violently, right? They make poor decisions, they don't understand, they can't get through life. Whatever their issue is, it leaves them with fewer choices. And those choices become more and more violent. And it is just a fact. You see gang members, you think those MS-13 guys with tattoos on their face and their neck and their chest and their back and their arms, right? You think they're Rhodes Scholars? They don't know shit. They aren't capable of learning shit. And so they subscribe to violence, taking from others to get what they need so they can survive. And when shit hits the fan, it's about survival. You have to survive every situation, right? It is not going to be a cakewalk or paradise. You're not going to earn any scout badges. That's not what it's about. It's going to be about survival, and human contact is going to be amongst the best and the worst. You're going to end up discovering who you are as a person. You'll discover others that are really good. You're also going to discover the absolute worst. Absolute worst. So I want to tell you a little story about a altercation I had the other day. You know, I'm 6'6", blonde, white, absolutely white. There's no doubt about it, right? No confusing me with someone of color, as they like to say. I hate that description of color. You know, it's just, I'm so tired of the games. Anyways, I was sitting down, having some food and some drink with two brown friends, right? And this other guy walks up, total stranger, puts beers down in front of them, not me, and proceeds to start talking. And so I just sat back and started listening. And this guy's attitude was, well, I'm brown and those two guys are brown, and so I'm going to go and recruit them. And he literally, two strangers in a brew pub, he started trying to recruit them to his way of thinking, his type of tribalism, talking about, well, I'm this and I'm that. I mean, that with the gang hand signs and body language, everything about this guy said IQ of about 60. And I participated in the conversation obliquely. But I just sat there and watched. This guy's conversation became more ignorant and more violent. And then he started talking about me to my friends. And if there weren't surveillance cameras, I would have ended up hitting the guy in the jaw, knocking him out, and then probably dragging him out the back door and throwing him in the alley. The reason is he was becoming violent for no reason at all. He tried offering drugs to my friends, who politely declined. He tried offering them a racist perspective that he expected them to start acting on at that moment. He was trying to argue that they were more important than me and white people. And it's funny, they're both my brown friends, and we had just been talking about one guy whose granddad was Polish, the other guy whose granddad was German, but they both got great tans, you know. And I'm looking at them, and they're kind of watching this guy looking at me, and I thought, well, this is going to get ugly here in about 5 minutes. But we were able to extricate ourselves from him and just excuse ourselves and leave, which is something else the instructor said. He's like, if you can avoid a situation, it's always better. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm going to get into a fight, possibly, and lose my freaking concealed weapons permit that I just got recertified, because I'm going to get in a bar fight with an idiot who put himself into my world, who injected himself right into a situation with me. And violence almost became necessary. Now, if this is shit hits the fan, the guy would have been shot just walking up, just because of the body language and the attitude that you could see. This is not shit hits the fan. It's still the regular world, so there wasn't going to be any of that. But I was prepared. I was in a position. I understood what was going on. I had situational awareness. The guy was there alone, didn't have any backup, but he was that brazen because of his ignorance. He was that brazen. He was also wanting and willing to recruit others to his way of thinking. So when shit hits the fan, do you suspect guys like this are going to go sit in a closet, suck their thumb, and cry? Or do you suspect that they're going to participate, that they're going to carry on the same way? They're going to look for people that they can convince, right, to believe what they believe and do what they do. Yeah, damn right they're going to do that. That's exactly what they're going to do. And they're going to look for people that look like them because, I guess, birds of a feather is what they're thinking. He identified with them because they were brown. It's just incredible to me how all of these lessons came together. And I was already going to put the books on Amazon, talk to Jolene, and say, these are needed. But, that situation, that came up, and it's just incredible what's happening in this world with these migrants coming from overseas, with the migrants coming from Central America. It's not that they're bad because they're tan. They're not bad until they've broken a law, but once they've broken a law, they're criminal. And what they've demonstrated is when they get up here in the United States of America, we are soft, nobody pays attention, we all operate under the premise that we're all free, let's just walk down the street. Let's all just be friends. I tell you what, unless you're paying attention to everyone around you, you look like easy meat for them. You are dinner, you are money, you're a good time, right? They get to hurt somebody and feel good about it, and trust me, criminals like hurting people. Makes them feel good and superior. I can't tell you how many times I've heard some criminal idiot call his victim stupid. Man, that fucking guy was so stupid, I just walked up and clocked him. He's not stupid, he's just not aware. So your situational awareness Don't wait until shit hits the fan to practice it. Start practicing it now, because violence is necessary, and it's going to become more necessary as the stitches come out of this thing, as the balloon deflates, whatever analogy, metaphor, simile you want to use. Right? This is like that. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. You know, and it was interesting watching the non-law enforcement, non-military, regular citizens, you know, try and grasp what was being taught and trying to understand the mentality of it, right? Of either being a victor or being a victim in an altercation with a criminal. And even in shit's the fan, there's still criminal, there's just no criminal justice system. There's no police, there's no courts, there's no jails. Shit has hit the fan. Right? You're on your own. So start developing this awareness more. When you walk into a room, just have some fun with it. Right? Look around and see if you can identify dangerous people. And maybe you live in a nice area and that's just not going to happen. Maybe you live in a shithole and you see it all the time. Right? But again, there's a thin line that keeps these people from assaulting, murdering, thieving, burglarizing all the time. There's a thin line there that stops them all the time. And it's the belief that they could get caught or killed. Right? And that's what this self-defense concealed weapons training was about. Is understanding your rights. Right? Your right to self-defense. And also scaring the shit out of us, saying, you know, defend yourself, but when the police come, you better be prepared to defend yourself, because they're going to ask a bunch of questions. And you could get a good cop that says, hey, you did the right thing, protected yourself, move along. Or you could end up with some hot rod who wants to make an arrest. Right? Oh, you beat that guy up. Huh? Oh, you clubbed him before he clubbed you. Yeah, well, I'm arresting you anyways. You don't know what you're going to get right now. But I tell you what, it's better to win that fight than to end up with a bullet hole or a knife wound. Better than being robbed blind and raped. Right? They'll pull your wallet out, they'll get your address, they'll find out where your house is, right? And they'll go and victimize your house, your family. These people are stupid. They really are. They are stupid. But they're clever enough, through experience and practice, at using violence to get what they want. Violence can be the answer. And the primary path we're on leads to a very violent and confrontational world. So it's paramount. It's paramount that you get some self-defense. I always know I say food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, and means of self-defense, as if self-defense is the last thing. It is one of the first things, right? If you can't defend yourself, having a year's worth of food will be stolen from you in a day, right? If you can't defend yourself, you'll be chased away from your water source and never allowed to get any. And if you can't defend yourself, the medicine you have will be stolen from you so that some junkie can ingest it, snort it, shoot it up, or whatever it is they think they're going to do to get their fix. Because they'll be alive and shit hits the fan too. So you've got to have defense. You've got to have a plan. You need to have the mentality that people are not good. You hope to meet good people, and I tell you what, when you do, you'll know it. They'll behave properly. They'll have the right attitude, the right posture, the right tone of voice. They'll have a decent vocabulary. Right? You still can't trust them until you know you can trust them. Right? But all that double crossing in the movies where the guy comes in and acts like your good buddy and you get to know him for 6 months and then he ends up killing you after 6 months. He's like, I fooled you, man. You thought I was your buddy. Well, I just took everything you ever had. You know, No. If someone's a shithead, you're going to know it, basically. Right? And you keep an eye on the good ones just in case, they start getting a little sketchy. And that does happen. After an hour, their story starts falling apart. They need to hit the fucking road. Right? That guy that was sitting with us, brought a couple beers over to my brown brothers. He was acting all cool at first. And it was pretty funny. They started asking him questions. I started asking him questions. Where are you from? What are you doing? Why'd you come over here? What's this all about? He's like, what are you guys asking me all these questions for? Well, we want to know who the fuck you are, what you're up to, what you think you're doing. Right? And he tried putting on a good story. It fell apart in less than 10 minutes. He started acting like a fucking ass. Right? And he said, luckily my friends, they kept him calm, but they just looked at him and go, dude, we're not your fucking gang. But that shit's gonna happen. People's stories will fall apart. Their violence, the inherent poor decisions that they're gonna make, it will expose itself. So get used to it now. I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say, hey, go read a bunch of murder stories in the news all the time. Don't let that shit drag you down. But start practicing situational awareness. What was it? Criminy. Back in 2001, I was traveling down to Mexico on business, and business associate I was with. We were driving down the street in Mexicali. I'm looking at people, and I was talking about, well, this guy is that and that and the other. And he goes, shit, man, I didn't think we were going to do character analysis as we drove through this fucking place. And I said, man, there is nothing better to do in Mexicali when you're as white as me. And he was as white as me, but with red hair, right? And brilliant guy, but I'm like, nope, I'm going to analyze every one of these son of bitches, right? Because I look like fresh meat to them, right? And if they think, I'm fresh fish, they're out of it, I'll fucking eat them alive. Didn't have any problems in Mexico. People there were actually very respectful when I spoke with them. It could be that they were all 5'5" and I'm over 6'5". Who knows? And that was another point that the instructor brought up. He says, we all can't be big like John. We all can't intimidate with one look. We all can't have the posture. And these are all things that, what can I say? They just work for me. It's me. I got lucky, right? And that's it. I got fucking lucky. This is who I am and what I look like. But he said, for the rest of you, you don't look like that. So you have to make up the difference. You have to make up the difference. You have to do the extra work, right? You can put on more muscle. You can practice glaring. Right? You can work on your posture, your carriage, your demeanor, how you move. So you can work on all those things and make yourself less of a target. Women have it even harder, right? They have an even harder time at it because they're women, because you're smaller, because you're not as strong as men, right? Because of those disadvantages, you need to take advantage of what strengths you do have. And it's the prepared mind. It is the mind, right? That intelligence I was talking about that the bad guys don't have, but you do. It is your minds that will allow you to get out of horrifyingly dangerous situations, to save your life, to save the lives of those around you, because you're paying attention, because you're aware, because you're trained, because you have a plan, because you have an understanding of human nature and behavior. Those are all tools you have in your bag. These criminals, these fucks out here, when shit hits the fan, they're gonna have tunnel vision. And if they're weak, tired, hungry, thirsty, injured, sick, it's gonna make them that much more dangerous, but also that much easier to figure them out, right? If they're hungry, thirsty, sick, injured, they're not going to spend, hours and days trying to figure you out to get to you. They're just going to come right at you. You'll see it. Right? You'll see it. That fucking guy at the brew pub. Right? He circled around for a few minutes, about 20 feet over, looked at some people and decided he was going to fucking target our table. I don't know what the fuck he was thinking. I don't know what his ultimate plan was. Whether he's going to give them some laced drugs and then steal their shit, or fucking rope them into some sort of gang crap. I don't fucking know what his plan was. But it wasn't well thought out. It was poorly executed. Like I said, I was prepared at any second to just leap up and wail on that motherfucker. If not, just cold cock him for saying something a little too offensive. As a smaller person, as a woman, as a younger, less experienced person, what do you do? What do you do? You see someone like that and they walks over, you just walk off. Do you lift your shirt? Do you advise them that you have a gun? Well, if you do, and they don't act scared, you better be prepared to draw it, right? And that's the whole thing, preparation. You better be prepared. Because these people, violence is going to be necessary. And I know we've got a lot of crazy crap going on in the world. Violence is going to be necessary. Going on in Venezuela. You don't have money, but you have stuff, right? You don't have protection, but you've got food. Someone's going to come and violently take it. You can see people taking other people's livestock, assaulting each other. You can watch videos where the most popular one is a semi truck on the road gets harangued until it rolls over, and then it's just covered in people, right? Like dropping a couple of sugar cubes on an ant's nest. They just cover it and start eating it. That's the violence. You've got to be prepared. You've got to be ready for what's coming. These people do not play games, right? They will just go right for the jugular, especially if they're cold, hungry, starving, thirsty, injured, sick, right? And stupid. Anyways, everybody, I want to thank you for supporting this channel. Check those books out. I'm pretty sure you can read some pages on Amazon of the book. But if not for you, for your spouse, your kids, your neighbors, they need to understand that violence is a tool when responding to other violent behavior, other violent thought. You may not be a violent person, but someone else is. And you can't kind them to death, right? It's not the movies. You can't outwit them with some catchphrases and get away from them when they're intent and bent on hurting you and taking from you. All right, folks. Chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Get prepared. Semper Fi, Godspeed. Thank you again.